Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about the whole weekend of the Arkansas Pen Show. Just got back on Monday from this past weekend and going to show what all we got. Just kind of talk about the weekend as a whole, getting to go to Vanness and do some of the other videos and stuff. So let's get started. Okay, so we got into Little Rock a day early, and we're able to go over to Vanness on that Thursday and take a look around the shop. I hadn't been there since they'd moved locations, which they did a couple years ago, but it was neat to see how it's all laid out now, and I actually was able to do a live stream with Lisa, kind of walking through the store, showing what they had, and including the back room, and I'll put a link to that in the description, and I'll have a little card pop up to kind of show if you weren't able to see the live stream. That's a neat look to see the behind the scenes, because that's always more interesting to me sometimes than the front of a house at a retail shop. And I was also, Lisa has a video that she was recording, I believe, for her YouTube, where she interviewed me since I've been a customer there for about 10 years, kind of talking about, when I started versus now, how things have changed, how preferences have changed, and whatnot. So be sure to check out the Vanness YouTube channel for whenever that posts. So that was fun. And then that evening, we were able to go out to dinner with Lisa, Shawn Newton, Matthew Chen. So a couple of the people who had also gotten there early. So that was a nice chance to get to talk to them some. And then the next morning, it was time for the show to start. So that Friday morning, we were able to go into the show. We were able to be actually the first person to go to Matthew Chen's table. Beth was able to get one of her Pelikans sorted, and we'll talk about that later on as we get to going through everything that we purchased and nibs that we got ground and things like that at the show. But it was a good time. We went all 3 days. Sunday was a more abbreviated day because we did have a drive home after we went to Shawn Newton's panel on making pens. That was kind of our final hurrah, and then we got on our way back because it was a 5-hour drive for us. But overall, great weekend. So let's take a look at everything that we purchased at the show. Okay, so gonna start looking through the stationery haul between my wife and myself from the Arkansas Pen Show. So to start out, I'm going to go with what my wife got, and then I'll move on to what I got. Okay, so one of the first things that Beth picked up was from Vanness, the Leigh Reyes edition Rickshaw Banzai. She has a different rickshaw that was the A5, and it wasn't quite big enough. She actually uses this as her purse, so I'm not going to show inside. But it's got the cool design, and I believe Vanness is the only place that carries this Rickshaw edition. Leigh Reyes is out of the Philippines and does amazing art with fountain pen inks. So that was the first thing that she got. And then she went to one of the panels, and I believe and I'll double check, is Happiness Handmade, did a bullet journal panel, and she decided, after talking to Danielle, who runs Happiness Handmade and does stickers and whatnot, Beth went and picked up the Galen B6 with a Stalogy and, set it up with bullet journal stuff. She's getting all the spread stuff working on there. And then I think she said over in here, she got a bunch of stickers from Happiness Handmade, and Vanness sells these now, so I'll have a link in the description where you can get some of these stickers and stamps. There's, the day stamps and months and all that kind of stuff. So really neat if you're into the sticker journaling community. I'm not so much in the sticker side of things, but I do, really like this format and this Galen, and as you'll see later, I might have had a Galen follow me home as well. The next thing that she did is, this is the pen that I got her when she first really got into pens and after her first book was published. It was the Sailor M600 from 2018. Her favorite color is teal, and that's also the year we got married. I was able to find this a while back, new old stock, and it was her first gold nib and her first Pelikan. But it did not write well. It had a catch in the nib, and, that's always a little bit of a disappointment, and I did not want to risk messing up a nice gold Pelikan nib. So she was the first person on the first day of the show to go to Matthew Chen at Matthew's Nibworks. he was able to get it smoothed out, and now it's riding buttery smooth within the first like 5 minutes of the show. So she was very happy about that. And then I had taken this with me. You've seen this on some of the videos before. This was my M600 in extra fine that I really didn't use all that much, and it was a pretty wet rider. So I took it with me to the show and was thinking about, trying to sell it or trade it. And after she got hers tuned and saw how nice it wrote, she's like, wait, why don't I just take that? And so I was fine with me. So now she has an extra fine and a fine. She also got this one tuned by Matthew. So both of those are, serving her well in smooth. And then the other, let's see. So that was her Galen that she picked up the Stalogy and the Galen from Vanness. And that's one nice thing if you ever go to Arkansas is that the Vanness store is right up the road. So they bring some of their stuff, obviously, to have at the show, but the full inventory is only like 4 or 5 mile drive away. So went over to the store for both of us to get the exact color of the Galen that we wanted. So that was nice. The next thing is she got her first sailor, and this was actually, ironically, she was able to pick this up from Olive Octopus Inc., who's part of our local Middle Tennessee pen club community. She had it in her set of pins she was looking to find new homes for. And Beth had tried a sailor and really liked it. And I was like, wait, I think Lisa had one for sale. So they were able to work out a good deal that was beneficial to both of them. So gold nib sailor. And I'm actually going to be re-inking this for her after I'm done filming the video. She had a lighter ink in there, but because it's such a fine line, she wants something a little bit darker. And then this is a Newton pen. Now, our friends from Memphis were able to make it out on Saturday. They've, the ones who kind of got me into going to shows and whatnot many years ago. Well, their friend Marissa, my wife, and one of their friends are working on a joint project of sorts. And there were 3 of these pins from Shawn, Newton, and they all are the black, and I don't know this exact model. I'll put that in the description. I wasn't certain of the exact name of this particular model that he does, but they all kind of match except for different section colors. So they each got those as kind of a collaborative effort. So it's a really cool pin, and then if you're not familiar with when you get a pin from Shawn, especially at a show, his wife makes all these little individual pin sleeves, and you can choose one of the pattern of your choice to put your new pin in. And he also will tune the nib at the table. So she got this tuned. This is a broad nib that she has some black ink in for using in the bullet journal for headers and whatnot. So she was very pleased with that. And then her final thing was, this is a pin she already owned. This is the Prussian TWSBI 580. And somehow the nib had gotten the tines were just not right. I looked at it, a couple other people looked at it, and none of us could really get it sorted. So she was able to take this over to Matthew, and he was able to get it straightened out, and now it's writing again. So even though this is, a less expensive pen in the scheme of things, it's worth it to get that nib tuned. If the pin's not performing well and you're not able to use it, it's definitely worth getting that looked at to get the nib tuned. So let me get her stuff set off to the side and clear a little bit more desk space, and we'll get into what I brought back from the show. Okay, so I'm going to start with, as I referenced, I picked up a Galen Leather A5 notebook holder, and this is just the logical error I had with me. I put in there at the show. Then I have some of the note cards that you've seen in videos that I use kind of tucked in there, some extra ones. And then in this, it has this 4-pin holder that you can kind of pop in and out to remove pins. So that was nice and handy. So as I was going through the show, after I got some of these, I was able to condense what I was carrying around to, with the show from what if people were wanting to try or test things versus having the bigger bag and multiple pin cases. So that was a nice plus. Get that set over to the side here. So let's start by talking about pins that I already owned that I had some nib work done. Now, on the show, I think between Beth and I, we had 10 different pins go to Matthew for one reason or another. So this is my Montblanc Rouge and Noir. that I've had for years. And when I got it, I was in Amsterdam for a work trip. I bought it at the Ackerman store, and I really loved it. And then it was not fine enough for my writing, and it was a really wet writer. Matthew was able to size this down for me and kind of dry it up some. So now this is a pen I look forward to using a lot more. It's my only Montblanc that I currently own, and I really like it, but now I'm going to be able to use it on a regular basis. Up next is this. I did a video on this a while back, and I'll pop up a little card, but this is my Onoto Churchill that I got from Vanness in, I think, 2017. And as I talked about in the video on this, it was a little bit wide, so I did end up going and getting it sized down a size, and I'm glad I did. It writes so much better. I've had a chance to use almost all of these in some writing since the show, and this was a much better experience in writing with it. This is one of my latest pens, the Monteverde Innova Ti with the titanium nib. And one thing, if you saw that video, I was unsure about posting. I had a couple people reach out. You just have to kind of click it on there, so it will click on. Now, and the other question that kind of came up that I can answer now is, this is the same size as a Jowo number 6. Butler Stationery actually reached out to Montverde. He saw my video and he was curious. And Montverde replied that they use Jowo 6 on all their pens except for the titanium, which is made of German titanium in Asia. So they didn't really say who made it, but it is the same size. Someone in one of the Discords I'm on was asking if you could put this nib on other pins. Now, this little collar would need to come off. You'd have to pull the nib and put it in a different housing, but the housing itself will thread in from a normal Jowo 6. But after I did that video and tried to use this some, it was not writing very well. After talking to some people at the show, I guess Monteverde nibs can be hit or miss with how they leave, and when they're tuned and they leave to go to retailers. So that was a quick fix for Matthew. So now my one titanium nib is writing nice and smooth. And this is actually my first Newton pen that I got at my first Arkansas pen show in 2016 or 2015. I don't remember which one it was. And what I did for this is I actually got, and let me see if I can get it up close here. I just bought a nib from Matthew with an architect grind. I started this as a medium because of my smaller writing. I wanted an architect to use for, ink samples and whatnot in videos, and this is the one pen I haven't really taken a chance to sit down and try normal writing with. I think this is going to be more for headers and video and demonstration. But that is one nice thing is I already had a nib in here from Shawn when I bought the pen, but because this is a Jowo 6, I wanted this one to stand out so I knew which nib was what. So I got one of the ones that Matthew has with his logo on the nib. Was just able to screw this in, pop the converter in, and then fill it up. So that was nice. And, as I've said many times, the portability and being able to swap nibs around, that all use that same housing and nib type is great. Okay, so moving on. This is a Diplomat Aero in the black stripes. Now, I had actually, earlier on in the weekend, held a Diplomat Aero, and it felt okay, but I didn't really like the look. It was one of the solid colors. And then I came across this, and I had a couple of older vintage Esterbrooks that I never use. And I had a old Waterman that was kind of a quirky one that only had the one cartridge with it that would require syringe filling and whatnot. So I talked to Craig from Craig's Pens, and we were able to work out trading those vintage for most of the cost of this with a little bit of difference thrown in, and I actually really like this pen. I've always been intrigued by the fluting on the Diplomats, and the nib writes wonderfully. It's just also a Jowo 6. It's got their Diplomat logo on it there, so that's cool to see. But this actually writes great. They tune the nib very well when it leaves. So I've already put that to quite a bit of use. I actually wrote all my notes to be sure I don't miss anything when talking about it in that pen. Okay, so I'm glad I looked because my recording stopped. So I'm going to cut in here. This was the last pen that I got nib work on before the new ones from Matthew Chen. I got my Esterbrook Raven sized down to a Japanese extra fine. I got this about a year ago in Fountain Pen Hospital when we were in New York for a wedding, and the only size they had, I really liked the look of the pen, but they only had it in a medium, and I tried, but that was just too wide of a line for me. So getting it sized down to the Japanese extra fine, I was using this quite a bit yesterday doing some writing, and I love it now. I've got Chowkuro in here, so I've got the black pen with the black ink and the black nib, and I finally have the Esterbrook nib back on the Esterbrook. You know, it's got the logo on there. So I'm glad to have that back in, writing condition. And let's see. So then up next is the Magnolia Pen Co. And I don't know the exact name of the model of this pen. I'll put it in the description if there is a model name. But this blank is called Lunar Landing. And the colors on this are just crazy. As soon as I saw it sitting on the table, I knew that this was the pen that was coming home with me. It just is gorgeous. And then what I did for a nib is I just got a plain black nib, and then I took this over and immediately got an Uranagi grind on it from Matthew Chen. And on an Uranagi, it's got a thin line on the front and then a thicker line on the reverse. And I will be doing the separate video on just kind of showing the grinds and how they can make a difference. But that's the Magnolia Pen Co. with the Lunar Landing blank. And then the final new pen that I got is the Matte Black Ebonite Newton Prospector. Now, Shawn is the original one with this kind of triangle-shaped pen. There have been some copies done. He was talking about that, showing someone sent him a picture from one of the pen shows where someone had kind of copied, and we were talking about that in his panel, that the pen maker community is pretty protective of each other. Now, there are some things that all pens essentially are a cylinder of some sort with a nib, but there's certain design elements that they tend to do their best not to encroach on each other's designs, which is nice for a community to be kind of self-moderating like that. But what I got for here, and this is Shawn's nib with his Newton Pens logo on it, but then I took this over and got Matthew Chen's other kind of signature grind, the Kodachi. And the Kodachi, at the angle of which you write, affects the line width. And then I asked him about the reverse, and he was able to round it slightly, so this is almost like a needle point on the reverse when you write with it. And so that is, was the three new, those were the three new pens that I added to the collection over this weekend at the Arkansas Pen Show. And I just realized I did not get the couple of inks, so let me go grab those, and I'll be right back. Okay, so before I get to showing the inks that I brought back from the show, I wanted to mention that I now have an affiliate code where you can get a 10% discount from Vanness on a lot of their items that they sell. If you look at the description, you can use the code DWRDNET at checkout and save 10%. There are some exclusions, notably Galen and TWSBI, but each item will show whether or not a discount can apply. So let's get on to the inks that I picked up at the pen show. Okay, so let's get on to the inks that we picked up at the show. I'm going to start with this sample here. This is Sailor Manyo. This is one that Olive Octopus had in her traveling ink sample box. And this is one that I was looking at her samples of what she had, of trying to find an ink that matched the Magnolia Pen Co. pen. And you can see on that little sample there, hopefully the camera's not washing it out too much, that it matched the pen really well. So that's what I ended up putting in there. So I'd have that to be able to write with some and let people test out that Uranagi grind. And then this sample is from Chad of Eel and Anchor. He does resin blanks that, I know Shawn Newton's made some pens out of it, and other pen makers will get his blanks. But he was given a bottle of the Manila Pen Show ink by Matthew Chen, and Chad graciously, pulled immediately out a little vial and gave me a sample of it. So this was the Diamine Manila Pen Show Special Edition ink. And I don't remember the exact name, but I'll put that in the description with that. But that was very nice of him to give a sample of a brand new bottle of ink he was just given. And this next ink is Robert Oster. It's my first Robert Oster ink, but it's the Vanness Blue River. I picked this up at the shop just to have a small bottle I could keep in my bag for being able to dip a pen in to test something that was, pretty durable. And also I wanted to get something that was store unique. I want to get more of the, special editions that different stores are doing as I'm adding to my ink collection as much as possible. And in that same vein, this is called Fresh as a Daisy, and this is an ink that Vanness made for the pen show this year. I think she said she made around 19 bottles, and most of them sold on Friday of the show. But this is a greenish yellow. If you've never been to the southern United States at this time of year, everything outside is covered in a thin layer of greenish yellow pollen from all the trees starting to bloom. And I actually had to re-record this one little part, so I have this written down. This is just a color in from the Kadachi nib. I have that in that Newton Prospector right now, just to kind of show that green. So a nice color, it writes well, and it's got a little bit of shading in it when you write. So nice green ink to add to the collection. So yeah, I went a little, because of the pens, I went a little ink lighter than I had originally thought or planned, but I'm happy with this selection. It's a good variety of colors, and so that'll wrap up the inks that I picked up this year at the show. So what I've done for the walkthrough of the show portion is I filmed as I went into the show, kind of showing booths, doing a walk around the floor. So I'm going to show that now so you can see what it's like if you've never been to a pen show, kind of see how it's laid out. Now this, that being said, Arkansas is one of the smaller shows, but it's actually a very friendly show, a very personal. All the booths are glad to spend some time talking to you, and because it's not as crowded, you can get a little bit more FaceTime and get a chance to talk to the individual makers or sellers, and especially with Arkansas having a lot of vintage pens, you get a chance to look through all the notebooks and all the pens and experience it. So let's get on to the pen show walkthrough. Okay, so I'm at the Arkansas Pen Show. I'm about to do a walkthrough. This will probably end up being an edited video because it'll be crowded and have to move through people. But let's go into the show and take a look. Okay, so making the way into the show. As you can see, it's a decent sized room. Lots of different booths. And just do a little panorama here, showing all around. Starting in, we got and I'm not going to be able to see all the different booth names because not a lot of them have signs. Just kind of working our way through, some stationery items, whatnot. Got the Wright pen over here with Perry Kearney and Danny Fudge. They do vintage and vintage repairs. Got some cowboy engravings, really cool jewelry items, and then onto some different pens here. Then we have one nib grinder at the show. This is Matthew Chen over doing his thing. I've gotten quite a few things ground while here. So we've got Jimmy over here with his table's getting pretty bare on Saturday. It's been a well-attended show, it looks like, so far. And then here you can see this is Nick with just his cases and cases of all sorts of pens and options. And then here we have Vanness, and their store is just up the road. So, we've been over there a couple times as well to see things that they might not have here at the show, but a good selection of things. Got the letter writer social. Did one of the panels and some other pins here as well. Switch over here. We've got Newton pins. Shawn has some really cool pins. Some really cool pins here in the ebonite and whatnot. Shawn there.
I'm gonna make film you can't use. Oh, I'm not live, am I? It's not live? Oh, okay.
And then got some other really cool pins here. Olive Octopus Ink picked up one of these earlier. It's got the cool hand engraving on top. What was the name of your?
D Squared Art.
D Squared Arts. So definitely check those out. Really cool pins. Oh, there's the sign. Get that. Some cool blanks, cool pins, and the very unique. Haven't really seen the hand carving on top, and it's, you know, there's a good chance one of those could come home. I don't know. I've already bought a couple of pins this weekend, but you never know. So working around, we got some more vintage. And then we have Heinz pins. Got Jim of Heinz pins here. And a bunch of cool blanks for the pen makers.
Sorry, night residents.
Got some other vintage pins here. And then these were neat. They're 3D printed pin holders and stands. The Pin Guy Austin. And then we're here, we have Magnolia pins. And I actually ended up picking up a Magnolia earlier today. So a bunch of neat pins and different resins as well. So all sorts of cool pins and materials here from Magnolia. And work our way around here. It's the Antique Pen Company. And a bunch of cool vintage pins, a lot of them in the boxes. Some watches. So a little mixture of everything. Looks like some old edition Bibles and other watches down there. Some real cool vintage displays of things like that. And then that's one of the cool things. It's one of the old Schaefer auto pens display that shows the pen writing. Got OM1 designs here, which is a bunch of engraved pins and things like that. Very cool designs, intricate metal work and turning. Other things besides pins too, little holders and whatnot, so all sorts of cool stuff. And go way back over here, some more of the vintage. Then here is the booth, Happiness Handmade, and my wife bought a bunch of these stickers and a bunch of bullet journal stuff. She went to Danielle's panel, so very happy for that. And then this is, looks like Derail pins. Another nice selection of different acrylics and ebonites and whatnot. And then also some of the Colorverse inks. The mini, some of the bigger bottles. It's always good to have plenty of ink. And then this is some wood turning, some rings, different pins. And this is the pin turning for veterans. They did a panel here talking about their organization and what they do. Pin donations, so stuff that's going towards a good cause with a bonus. And then working our way over here. Some more stationery items and journaling things. Some of the pin cases and whatnot. So working through there. Yeah, it looks like Dave Dollar custom pins. Oh. We got the Pin Man with a bunch more vintage. How you doing? Some cool pins in the boxes and whatnot. That's always neat to see. Okay, and then circle back around here. This booth has a lot of people at it right now. Some pins and other things there. Nice assortment of different items. Pins, pencils, different themes of pins like music and whatnot. Some of these are cool with like the engraved things like that. Okay. Okay, and going to the gentleman's stationer table here. You had people as I was coming around the first time. He's one of the few with a lot of the more stationary items, not just pins. I know he likes to bring the things that most of the other booths won't have, so some of the gel pens, stationery, Blackwing pencils, and the Lockme cases and whatnot. It's always good to see that kind of stuff. Got Joe there.
How's it going?
Doing good. Okay, so I know this has been a pretty long video, and thanks for sticking around to see all of this, but I overall had a great time going back to the Arkansas Pen Show. I look forward. I'll definitely go back next year. I like that it's a smaller show. You get to talk to everybody a little bit more FaceTime and get to experience, the after hours. I actually got drafted into helping with a panel at the roundtable discussions in the evening. Myself and Olive Octopus Inc. kind of represented the Middle Tennessee Pen Club and talked about the YouTube channel. She does Twitch streaming and just ink swatching as a whole. So that was a fun event to be a part of as well. So if you've never been to a pen show, see what's around you. There might be some that you have to travel to, but there might be smaller regional shows that you're not aware of. And if you don't find a pen show, you might be able to find a pen club. We'll have a friend who wasn't able to make it to the show, but then talking to him, kind of telling how it went. Turns out they have a San Antonio Pen Club that was suggested on Instagram, so now they're going to be able to go check that out until they get the chance to visit a show. So be sure and check out the links in the description I put. I'm going to put to most everything I can that I bought, and for some of the maker pens, I'll just link to their website or their social media presence so you can look at the other things that they've made. Don't forget, we now have that affiliate code with Vanness, code DWRDNet, and that'll give you 10% on your purchase. Be sure and look for the exclusions that apply, but overall, I'm very appreciative that, to be able to offer that to people who are watching the channel. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing so you can see new videos as they're released, and thanks for watching.